Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the Big and Furry Bovine. Hey, the gang's all here. We've got Brittany, the silent Brittany, the deaf mute Brittany, on the left-hand side of your screen. We have Brian right next to her, and there's no connotation involved in this. Brian and Brittany are not an item. And after Steven's drunk enough, afterthoughts in the game, I doubt that there will be any relationship between Brittany and Steven either. We've got at least not a sober one. Derek Frisbee, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Derek Frisbee is with us as always, and Derek is starting his own YouTube channel as well, so that's a wonderful thing. We've got Philip Slauson, who really is Slauson-esque. I don't even know what the hell that means, but he is. He's very Slauson-esque. And then we have Rick, who's wearing Ben Hogan's old hat. And so go ahead, say hi. Show your hat. Hello. There you go. Yeah, all right. There you go. Actually, you know what it looks like? The hat that Gene the Dancing Machine used to wear on the Gong Show. At any rate, these are all cultural references, folks. And if you're old enough to remember them, then they're going to be funny. And if you don't remember them, then it's not going to make any.
And that's a promotion for Bruce Arians.
Yeah, exactly. And Bruce Arians is looking for a promotion.
Hey, Rick, you look like one of those guys who cleaned out the chimneys on Mary Poppins.
That's true too.
Like, chimney sweep.
Yeah. Dick Van Dyke.
Jiminy, Jaroo.
Hello to Roxanne's dolls. She's getting into the chat room earlier and earlier these days. She must find somebody around here irresistible, and that's a scary thought. I don't think with Brittany and Roxanne, I've never had two female listeners last this long.
And Steven's not even here.
I know. This is like they're like the ever-ready bunnies of the chat room. And Bronk is in there, and Ron Shane, and a few other people who don't want to be identified because they would be shamed into admitting they listen to this program. You know, I want to do this. I want to start out the program in a very simplistic way. No, not that simplistic, okay? We're going to be a little bit more complex.
Ocasio-Cortez, simplistic?
Yeah, like that. You know, thanks, everybody! It's okay.
Occasional cortex.
God damn. I mean, can you imagine if she was in charge of the British, the Tea Party, you know? My God, there would have been a revolution much sooner. These games, the wild card games, brought up a number of questions for me, and I wanted to answers and questions, but here's one that's really bothering me this morning. All right. Watching the Bears lose, okay, it was bad enough. It was hard enough for Dick Butkus to run out on the fucking field before the game, but to let him down that way, for God's sakes, is like the worst thing that could have happened. And who is it? Former Brown Cody Parkey. All right. Now, anybody could have missed that field goal. In fact, Greg Joseph would have missed it 17 times in a row. That isn't the point. The point is,
Gonzalez would have kicked it straight into the Eagles 18 times. So there you go.
I mean, we know that Cody Parkey's missed 11 kicks this year, and that Cody Parkey won't be the kicker for the Bears next year, or for anyone else for that matter. But that isn't even the point. Here's what bothered me. I watched the game in real time, and then I ended up seeing Andrew Hawkins, former Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals wide receivers, tweet. And the thing that rubbed me the wrong way rubbed him the right way. And I'm going to do it for you. I don't know how long it had been since the Bears had been in a meaningful postseason game. I have no idea, but it was a long time. I think back then Dick Butkus could walk, okay? It's been a long, long time.
No, they lost in the Super Bowl, remember, to Peyton Manning.
No.
Yeah, Rex Grossman.
Oh, I guess that's right. But I mean, those people were rabid, man. I mean, they were there for a reason. They wanted to win that game. So when he kicked the ball, and I know they're saying that it was tipped now, but that ball went sideways. I'm sorry, it was left off of his foot. Okay,
it looked like Greg Joseph on Ravens game to win it. That was the Ravens game, right?
Yeah. I mean, what I looked at was the ball went off this way off his foot. All right. He claimed he was playing the wind. All right. I say that he had just kicked the ball straight before the timeout was called, and he had a lot of time to think about it, and he shanked it left. But what did he do after he missed it? Does anybody in the chat room want to gesture what he did? Did you notice? What?
Cried on the field?
No, I'll do it for you.
You look up to the heavens or something?
Yes! I hate that fucking gesture.
You!
It was Will. It was fucking God's will. If I hear this one more time, God's will, I'm going to shoot somebody. The fact of the matter is you couldn't kick the fucking ball straight.
So he did that after he missed?
Yes. After
Are you kidding me?
The very first thing he did after he missed, he
gosh.
sheepishly points to the sky like, okay, God, you fucked me again. That's 11 this year. I mean, you know.
Well, at least he knows he needs help from God and not himself. Can't make anything.
But, you know, that's the point. The point is, how can you have a kicker on any player who basically believes that a secondary being is in control of all of it and not his fucking foot? I mean, you come into the game to win the biggest game of the season and you miss, and your first reaction is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I mean, it's like, no, you should want. You should want to make the fucking field goal. Oh, my God. So that was the first thing that rubbed me wrong on the whole thing. And then I realized that it was something else that was bothering me, too. And it went far beyond Steven's drunken post-game show, which we will talk about later. Okay.
Oh, we got to get on that.
No, we don't really. But yes, we do. Really.
That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Well, I'm glad you thought that. I'm a former broadcaster, and I thought.
Well, no,
it's an abortion. You don't do
way.
this. No. Mr. Moohead's a character. If you met me in person, you would actually say, this isn't the same guy. And
that's the number one question I get from people when they say, "Oh, you're on a show." Yeah. Goes, "Oh, you ever met him before?" I said, "Oh, no." Goes, "Well, how the heck are you on a show?" I said, "YouTube." You don't see me. You don't see me in public doing things. You don't. This is an act, folks. This is like what I used to do for a living. This is theater of the mind. That's what this is. But it isn't by any stretch of the imagination. Like if you came to my door and, you know, he said, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" I wouldn't say, "Eat me, you cocksucking son of a bitch." I would not say that. I would not say that. That's what the cow says. The cow has no filter. Don't you get it yet? I've been doing this for 15 years. There is nothing between this and this. There's no goddamn filter. Anything is likely to come out. I make fun of people who are mentally retarded. Do I do that in real life? No, I do not. No, I do not. I don't sit there and think that the funniest thing on television is the Special Olympics. I do not do that. I do not do that. And it's like, God, I hope somebody doesn't slip on the drool on the track. No, I don't do that. Oh my gosh.
Don't get too excited. You'll fall out of the damn chair again.
Goodness gracious.
Oh my God.
But at all times, I'm not intoxicated. I'm not sitting there with a bottle guzzling it down like Johnny the Wino either. We'll talk about this later, okay?
This confirms that you do.
I think that I mind this as well as I can mine it.
Crying.
Entertainment value, okay? I think I've extracted.
This confirms everything. This
Hope
confirms
this puts to
everything.
rest any idea that we use a script.
There's nothing. I don't prepare for any of this.
There's no teleprompter, nothing.
You think like I have a sheet of paper here, and like on the sheet of paper, you know, it's right here, and it's like, okay, make fun of mentally retarded people. Check, done. I mean, absolutely no. So at any rate, what really ate away at me once he gave praise to God for ruining the season of 60,000 Chicago fans in a stadium and all around the city of Chicago is that it isn't just his fault. the Bears had Robbie Gould, and Robbie Gould has kicked 82 of his last 85 field goals successfully. And the Bears decided they weren't going to pay him. And so they decided to get Cody Parkey.
Dumb.
It's kind of like, going to your local car lot and saying, I kind of know better, but I'll go for the Yugo. I mean, it's like, why are you doing this? And the answer is because we don't believe in spending money. Because in the end, the whole National Football League's doing the same thing. Because we have Greg Joseph, and there's a bunch of kickers in this league who don't belong in the league. And the reason is they kick the ball off. If they have a strong enough leg to kick it deep in the end zone, there's no return. But, do you know how many times in my life I have watched a kicker trot out on the field and be the difference maker in a game and win that game or lose that game? Yet that position is not valued. The people who are the accountants of NFL teams say, we're not in the business. God forbid you should draft a kicker high. God forbid you should do that, because that's a waste of a pick. And then you watch the ending of that game and say, God, wouldn't they have been happy if they'd actually had a kicker? And we look at the same thing with Greg Joseph. This is Greg Joseph. It's like, I don't know, I'm going to play the wind. I mean, he fucking looks like Steven with a goddamn bottle of Julio Gallo.
If we don't get record highlights on this show, people are just smoking crack.
Well, look, I've been doing this for 15 years and just affronting everybody that comes down my path. But I mean, really, didn't the Bears management get what they deserved? I mean, don't you think that somebody's butt puckered in the executive branch when Cody Parkey, when Parkey trotted out of the field? I mean, it's like,
hey, I'm George Ellis's grandson, but I'm a total clusterfuck as a human being.
You want to talk about misgivings in an instant? It's like they say that when you're in a car accident, your life flashes by you in seconds. Well, this is what, the McCaskey family is like, it's like, this has come back.
He's as bad as Mike Brown.
I mean, couldn't you foresee that this was going to happen? It's like, how do you miss 10 field goals during the course of a season and still be the kicker in the playoffs? I mean, it's a defensive struggle, and couldn't you see McCaskey's butt just puckering a little bit more tighter and tighter? You couldn't have fucking pulled a pin out of his ass like a grenade. You couldn't have done it. By the end of that game, that there wasn't enough scoring. It's like, oh God, it's going to come down to Parkey. And, and Parkey is a nickname for Parkinson's disease, which is because he can't kick the ball straight.
I think God blew that ball a little to the left.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what a time to find out that God is not a Bears fan. And why in the hell is Parkey? Why is Parkey praising him? I've got no idea. But in the end, Parkey only has a job because he was the lowest common denominator, because he was the most affordable guy who'd actually kicked for the Dolphins and kicked for the Browns, which doesn't make any difference because the Browns haven't had a kicker since Phil Dawson. I can't even name all the people we've gone through, but none of them could kick straight and were reliable. None of them. I mean, that's not something you put on your resume. I kicked for the Browns back when they won 3 games a season. That's not something that goes on our resume. I'm sorry. Man. And that's what the McCaskey family bought into. It's bad. It's bad. And so the first question is, why do NFL teams devalue kickers so much?
Just got a new head coach. They got the Titans' former offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur, if I said that right. That's from Ian Rappaport.
I'm sure that's a huge step up from Mike McCarthy. I can guarantee you. I'm sure that Aaron Rodgers is doing a joyful dance. Yeah. Why do they devalue kickers so much? Why?
Maybe Parkey was pointing like this, asking God, any quick directions on how to get the hell out of this stadium?
Just take me.
You bring up a good point, Rick. he wasn't praising God. He was directing the helicopter to get him the fuck out of there. Because he would
now you're here.
Going back to the old time kickers, can you imagine what Uwe von Schamann and Jan Stenerud and who was the other fucking guy? The one for the Chiefs.
I thought that
anyway,
was
can you imagine what those guys would be worth now?
Oh, I mean, but it just seems incredible. The Bears spent the U.S. Treasury Mint on Khalil Mack. And by the admission of the announcers, if you watch the game, he didn't really show up until the end of the game.
We should have had him kick.
I mean,
they might as well.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, but they were willing to spend that much money on him. Why wouldn't you spend a little bit more and get a decent kicker? Why wouldn't you keep a kicker who ended up kicking the next 82 out of 85 field goals? What would the reason be that you would let go an accurate kicker and replace him with somebody who had Cody Parkey's pedigree? It's mind-boggling. That's the first question.
Chicago had the lead with just a few minutes to go. Their defense would have come out in the field. You would think they'd make a stop, but there goes Nick Foles, 12 plays, 60 yards, touchdown.
Yep, and that team's built on defense, and you can never let it get down to a team that has pride as a former the reigning Super Bowl champions. You can't put the ball in their hands at the end. That's Marty Schottenheimer-esque. Now, here's another thing that it tells me. And, unless you're a complete moron, all right? Mitchell Trubisky is not Baker Mayfield. Let us please, just because he's from Mentor, Ohio. I mean, there are drug addicts who are from Mentor, Ohio. That does not really mean anything in the great scheme of things. Vagrants, homeless people, pedophiles in Mentor, Ohio. I mean, that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. Mitchell Trubisky, if they had a decent quarterback, and I know this was one of his best games, and he still couldn't put the ball in the damn end zone but once. What is the deal? And the answer is you can't win playoff games scoring 15 points. That's the first thing. All right. So, and then I'm looking at the other games, the other sides, and it's like I'm looking at Lamar Jackson, and it's like, it's bad enough watching the WNBA if I want women to play professional sports. But if I'm watching the NFL and it's a quarterback who throws like somebody who plays in the WNBA, it's not real entertaining. He's dropping his elbow. And the last play where did you see the big windup? He fucking looked like Ryan Duran from the 1946 Chicago Cubs. I mean, what the fuck is that? It looked like, way too many moving parts. That was like Dizzy Dean going through that bullshit, It's
according to Ravens fans, he's better than Baker.
Well, that's the thing that's amazing about it. Hiram, who is, how can I put this gently? How can I put
it? Tucker could have kept the Ravens in that game if they were to just focus on field goal range.
Yeah, I mean, there's an example of having a guy who's a 91% field goal kicker. I mean, it's just
you're going to see a lot in the offseason of teams trying to go out and get good kickers, especially after the bad year they've had in the NFL with kicking.
Yep.
It's like automatic. I mean, and there's nothing wrong in games like this with settling for 3 points because that's what everybody was doing, which brings up my third point, folks. Y'all asking me, why don't you want Craig Williams? Well, because I just got done watching not 54-51 football games like we were seeing earlier in the year. I started seeing a very different kind of football. The kind of football that the Browns could never win because teams would just run through them. The bottom line is you've got to have some resistance on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't think that the Chargers are a great defensive team, but I will say this. They took a look at what the Browns did and they amplified on it and they stopped the Ravens cold. And like I was trying to tell the Baltimore Raven fans, first of all, you got our team welcome to it, because now you have John Harbaugh for the next several years who has come out and said, I'm gay. No, he's come out. He might
you
as
get an
well
A+ for comedy today.
He's come out and said, Lamar Jackson is my guy and Joe Flacco isn't, which belied the fact that
quarterback isn't rare.
People were chanting Flacco, Flacco, Flacco.
And what they say, they're going to trade him or cut him.
But the thing that was funny is that the players were upset about that. Yeah, they're going to cut him. They're going to cut him loose. They don't want him anymore. The fans actually were chanting Blacko, Blacko, Blacko. You see, you have to understand that every player was offended by the boos that were raining down in the Ravens stadium, because there was this feeling that there was a racist element. But 3 for 10 for 7 yards and a 0 quarterback rating and 27 yards through 3 quarters. I don't think race is an issue here. I'd say that the guy played, well, how would I describe it? Wait a minute. Here we go. I'd be like a chicken with his head cut off. It was like he looked.
Do you think he was nervous in his first playoff game?
Yeah, do I think he was? He'd have been one of those perfect male models for a deodorant commercial, because he'd have been wearing the one that didn't work. He was sweating profusely. I mean,
when they say 4 out of 5 dentists, he would be the one.
He was horrible. He was horrible. And
gosh.
I mean, he wasn't even, they surrounded him. And when he had to step up in the pocket, he couldn't look downfield. And I'm not going to sit there and say, well, this is the final word on Lamar Jackson. I'm not going to say that, because what you saw was what happens to rookies. And it's especially what happens to rookies who can only run, can't pass, and whose game plan is exposed. And after a certain number of weeks, somebody gets used to it. You can bet your bottom dollar that every team in the NFL has filed that game away. And the next time we see Lamar Jackson, he's going to be facing that defense again. And it's, here, and by saying he's my guy, I understand that John Harbaugh is trying to be definitive. But people have to remember, I do a program here. We play the Ravens twice a year. The Ravens fans come over here to talk, and a lot of them don't like John Harbaugh, and they were disappointed that he was retained. Some of the boos are being based on the stubbornness of the head coach. Mm-hmm. That is your opportunity. Okay, that is your one opportunity to advance. The Ravens, since their world championship, they are not big-time players. Ozzie Newsome's last year. They're a team that's in transition. They're transitioning to a young quarterback. A lot of the players that they're living off their defense right now, and they haven't generated the kind of offense. And Harbaugh is not the kind of guy who's going to generate that kind of offense. And now they got him for a multi-year contract.
And Lamar's a hit away from his career being over.
Yeah, that's right. And anybody who says he's my guy, you better figure out a playbook that he knows how to run, because he didn't know how to run the one that, and he just kept throwing over the middle of the tight end. You saw what happened. Yeah. They knew where he was going to throw it before he threw it, because I knew where he was going to throw it, because I said it the week before. That they just run the same 6 plays over and over again, and they run it right into the middle of the line. And it's the same goddamn thing. It's like, okay, here comes the 3rd and 5 drop play with the quarterback, swamp, and they knock him to the ground. And one of these times he's going to get hurt. If you're going to base this man's future, your team in him, put it in his hands, you can't do that. He's going to RG3 his way right out of the game. So, I wish Ravens fans the best of luck. You heard me do it on the air. I was a gentleman about it. I admitted that the better team won. The sounder roster at that point with more experience had won. But I warned them that Lamar Jackson not only was not a finished product, but we don't know what he is until teams start getting used to what the little trickery was that the Ravens were running. And it didn't look like San Diego was fooled at all. Not at all.
I think they would have had a better shot with Flacco. And I think Flacco's got a lot of football in him. If he goes to like the Jaguars, I think the Jaguars would really use him.
What about Washington?
Yeah, true.
You know, the other thing the other thing I didn't understand is the whole 6-1 run for the Ravens was predicated on a switch of quarterback and because of that, a complete switch of scheme in which they turned into a running team and a quarterback keeper team, okay, and only throwing very safe passes. Well, it wasn't working for 3 quarters, and they were still in the game. Why in the world wouldn't you put Flacco in? And maybe the same thing would happen all over again because the defense that they were set up to play was set up to play Lamar Jackson, and if Joe Flacco beats him down the field. Why wouldn't you even try? That's the thing that's remarkable. And the other reason I think fans were booing, it's like he's just willing to accept getting splattered. And, you know, and they can talk about, oh, well, he came back in the end. And it's like, you know something? First of all, Cody Parkey's still waiting for him to come back. And he hasn't come back yet. All right? He didn't come back, Lamar Jackson. They softened their defense and they went conservative. But at the end, when they brought the heat, the ball was back here. He got stripped, and that was the end of the game. And so it ended the way it began. It was never any good from the get-go. And so, again, I asked the question, you know, if it's okay to change, you know, ships in mid-course, why isn't it, again, an opportunity to change ships with a quarterback who has actually led you to a Super Bowl? Now, God forbid, we watched Nick Foles out there, and it's like, well, he could never do that again. It's like,
And there's a comment in here that from Dylan that Foles will probably get franchise tagged and traded, and I highly doubt that. They would be better off trading because of the team believing in Foles more than they believe in Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
They'd be better off trading Carson Wentz and his massive goddamn contract.
And Wentz could turn out to be an injury risk. You know, the last 2 years he's been injured?
Look, it all changes.
Hasn't stopped Sam Bradford from getting a goddamn job.
Well, everything changes in a heartbeat in the NFL, and a guy like Carson Wentz was the darling of the league. But, you know, injuries play a major part in this game, and there were some quarterbacks who I think would have been much more prolific quarterbacks in their careers had they not gotten hurt. And I don't just mean running guys like RG3 and Michael Vick. I mean, there are people who I honestly think, you know, lost a certain amount of mobility and never really were able to regain all of their function. And if I'm sorry, but I just want to say real quick, in this whole Lamar Jackson, you know, RG3 argument, this is why Kyler Murray needs to go to the MLB and not the NFL, because he has the same exact kind of game as Lamar has. And if you keep taking hits like that, and Kyler's a lot smaller too, so if you keep taking big time hits like that, you're not going to last long. So that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah. You know, there's a comment in the chat room. I'm sorry. It said can't tackle equals carry, and I'm not going to have somebody insulting Sissy Spacek in my chat room. I'm sorry. I mean, if you want to sit there and make fun of 1980s 70s and 80s actresses, this is not the show for that. All right. If you've missed the reference, then you're too young.
Zoomed right over.
This is not a program for millennials. I want to make that eminently clear. All right.
Glad I can be on the show.
Yeah, I mean, but you have
a account to get Rick.
You have a pocket protector and those goofy glasses. You're not a millennial. Believe me, you're a future accountant. I mean, there's a big difference here. Not that there's anything wrong with being an accountant. Not that there's anything wrong with that. No, you're a broadcaster, Derek. You're a broadcaster now.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm not sure
it's
how
better than being a shyster lawyer. Let me tell you.
No, I'm proud of you.
For the Bears.
I'm seriously. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop making fun of people for about 30 seconds here. And no, I'm proud of you, Derek. I really am. because I think
Thank you.
it takes it takes courage to get in front of a camera and do this, because you wouldn't believe the shit I've taken over 15 years. You got to believe in yourself. And the cow thing, do you know that when I first started the show, you know what people said about me? Hey, there's the fat guy who broadcasts from his mother's basement. And I had to explain to people that if I broadcast from my mother's basement, it would be 12 feet under the ground.
Good Lord.
The only way I could get to the studio would be with a shovel. Be accurate with your criticisms. Yeah. But that's the kind of shit.
Well, and that's the thing. People are, and I've taken a lot of heat from it, and some of it might be joking. I don't know. But, frankly, I don't care. So, keep hating all you want.
Yeah. I mean, it's so those are questions that I asked, but the other one is the Greg Williams thing. We don't have a defense that can stop the run. All of these games were really defensively dominated, and if you want to know, none of the quarterbacks that I looked at, and that includes Phillip Rivers, is as good as Baker Mayfield. All right, and I know you're going to say, well, you can't really say that because Phillip Rivers has been doing it for years. I'm talking about today, right now.
He has to get a Super Bowl to cement his legacy. He has to.
He's an extremely accurate passer, but his arm strength is diminishing. You could see that. And he's not mobile at all. And he is a duck if he doesn't get rid of the ball quickly. The offense works for him because it's all about getting rid of the ball quickly.
Oh, you think he's immobile? You should see his wife.
Yeah. Okay.
Good Lord. After 19 kids, she's got to be immobile.
Yeah, there you go. I don't, I look at today and I say, I didn't see a quarterback on the field who compared to Baker Mayfield. And, but the Browns still wouldn't win because they don't have it. And it isn't just the players. I'm not convinced because we saw what appeared to be an absolutely horrible offensive line at the beginning of the year, shored up by one replacement, getting Desmond Harrison out, Greg Robinson in, and then suddenly it gelled, and they looked like a different group of people when they were running the offensive plays that the team ran well. When all that other shit stopped, the Todd Haley stuff stopped, the offensive line suddenly got better. There are some people on our defense who I'm not saying we don't have to add to the defense, but what I'm saying is in a scheme that might be better for what we have, this attack at all cost defense that Greg Williams, we don't have the speed to recover from mistakes. And that's not the best way of running this defense. And if we had a defensive coordinator, look at the job, what's his name? Eberflus? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Eberflus, something like that.
Yeah, the guy from the Colts who took a team that was disastrous defensively and brought them to number 10 in the league, and you saw how well they played. My goodness, if you have somebody who has a good scheme and a good concept, even if we don't have the best players in the world, if instead of giving up 135 yards rushing a game, which the Browns did, if you're giving up 100 yards rushing a game and forcing teams into more third and longs and things of that nature, and you have an entire different scheme as far as what players are covering what areas. I mean, you could be good enough. You could be good enough. We would have been competitive with the teams that I saw playing in the wild card. The Browns fit right in. We just got into this horrible start. We had no chance in the end to get in. But there was no team that I saw on that field that really scared the bejeebers out of me. I mean, and that's now the next round, there's lots of teams that will scare the bejeebers out of me in that next round.
If you allow me to make an analogy here, this is kind of how I view the Cleveland Browns. They are a road that has a few potholes. Now, that road works fine. It'll get you to where you need, but you got to fill the holes. And that's kind of how this team is. You fill those holes and you're golden.
Yeah. Now, best impact brings up a good point. Schobert is first in missed tackles. Collins is fourth. We need linebackers and defensive tackle. And, again, Ogunjobi started out well. He's had moments. I criticized Myles Garrett, but he had 13 and a half sacks, and he was second team Pro Bowl. And I'd say that Ogbah didn't develop the way we needed him to develop, and we need somebody. What we need is somebody who's not getting pushed around up the middle, because we were giving way too much yardage up the gut. That's what concerned me more than anything. It wasn't just like that we weren't fast enough to cover sweeps and things of that nature. It was like right up the middle. We were just not strong. We weren't stout, pushing the line back. And we need to get stronger that way. And I don't know if that means a change in the physical training regimen of this team, as well as the defensive coordination of the team. Whatever it is, we do have to get better. And, well,
I think if you paired another good defensive tackle, if you could go out and find another Michael Dean Perry to pair with Ogunjobi, that would be that would actually give them something where they can't automatically double Ogunjobi. I think that was happening a lot too.
Sure. I mean, teams catch film and they see who they can handle one-on-one and who they can't. And the same thing, they were holding Myles Garrett half the season. And, and we had, we need an extra strong player on the defensive line. Actually, we need depth on the defensive line.
That's a heavy defensive draft this year. So
that's right.
I don't know if Dorsey would be interested in trading up, but, I think where we're sitting right now, because of how deep this defensive draft is, I still think at the 17th pick, if I remember that right, if that's where we're at, we can still find somebody pretty good. If that's how they want to go.
Yeah, Mr. X is asking an interesting question. Was it Baker Mayfield that was the spark to make the team go from nothing to making a statement later in the season, or just the firing of Hugh and Haley? And I think these two things go hand in hand. I think, first of all, Baker Mayfield was obviously better than Tyrod Taylor. We saw that. And that the coaching decision was a bad one to keep him on the bench because Tyrod just was ineffective. But I do believe that Baker Mayfield exceeded expectations. And it isn't, I don't look just at the stats and the yardage gained and that kind of thing. What really astounded me more than anything was that as the season progressed, he actually was recognizing defenses at the line of scrimmage, audibilizing out of plays. He was being given responsibilities and
playing like a veteran.
Yeah. And he was checking down and he was finding open men. And, a lot of these plays, like what he opened the second half with against the Ravens, the touchdown pass, the one that Landry caught, that was not the primary guy in the pattern. He finds them and, he's doing things on the field through progressions, through extending plays. He's extending plays without running the football. He's just looking downfield and he's turning his mobility and his evasiveness into chunk plays.
Not only that, in the entire history of the Browns, he's had the 6th best passing yards ever. The only two,
and he's a rookie.
The only 2 players have the other 5, Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar. And he only played 13 and a half games.
Yeah. Now Baker, GX Mayfield 6 God says a lot of those tackling issues with the Browns defense because they got carried away with stripping the ball instead of making tackles. And that's true. Greg Williams really is a big plus minus guy. And I agree. The way that you get turnovers is by somebody standing a guy up and a second guy coming in and stripping. It isn't the first guy trying to strip, but I think everybody was trying to make plays that way, and they were just devaluing tackling. And so there was way too much arm flailing and not enough actual tackling. But this is all the philosophy of that defensive coordinator. What these games this weekend told me is that we just need to get stouter defensively. But boy, if we just would be able... It's not like playing Lamar Jackson or playing any of the quarterbacks that I saw was particularly insurmountable if we were to get to the playoffs next year. What would be insurmountable would be allowing teams just to run for 150 yards at will. It will make those mediocre quarterbacks look a damn sight better, and you just can't afford that. So that's what that tells me. Now I want to move on to the drunken broadcast of Steve.
Oh God!
Now
Friends don't
is
let
when
friends
this gets
drunken
good.
broadcast.
And what I want to say is, and I'm actually, I was trying to be a little funny about it earlier, but I don't want to be funny about it in one regard. We had a saying. Bruce Pearl was the person who said it. We're only as good as the last thing we said. And for me, I'm only as good as the comments about mentally retarded people. I shouldn't be talking, but the fact of the matter is, I think people have been watching for 15 years, know where I stand. They know what type of person that I am, and that this is a stupid act. But when you're not in your right mind, you shouldn't hit the play button. It's a lot like Dan Gilbert. I criticized Dan Gilbert for hitting the send on the LeBron letter. We're going to win a championship before you do. And he's off to Miami, and the next thing they're holding up the trophy, and we're playing with ourselves. When you're not in your right mind, you're better off just keeping things to yourself. And I think that I can understand the frustration of all fans who believe. I tried to bring him down, when he was doing this shit after they beat us, like beating us was the be all end all. And I told him all it takes is one bad game. And boy, Deshaun Watson sure had that bad game. The whole choked. Just terrible. I mean, he just looked like the moment was too big for him. Maybe it won't be next time, but he might also be a future Cincinnati Bengal who never gets out of the first round. We don't know that yet. But I guess the point is that the reason I always praise the victor on this show, and I'll be honest, I don't think the Raiders beat us. I think the referees beat us. I'm not going to lie about things, but when we lose to a team, it's usually because they're just better than we are, and you acknowledge that to their fan base. But when the fans come in and they trash talk after they beat us, then, you have to remind people, the shoe's going to be on the other foot one day, and you can handle it one of two ways. You can handle it with grace, like Mr. Moohead, by acknowledging that the victor was the deserving winner, or you can get 2 bottles of wine, get smashed, and hit the play button. And I don't think that is a smart thing to do, because as a
Mr. Moohead,
yes,
can you remind me? Never do that.
Never do that. And somebody your age shouldn't be drinking anyway. The fact of the matter is there is a professional standard to broadcasting, and if you're doing an act, you're doing an act, but do it in your right mind. Don't and I understand.
But you could tell he was clearly drunk too, because just the way he was acting.
Yeah, I know, and I understand his frustration. You put your hopes in something, and the truth is, and again, I try to point out to Cleveland fans who I think are unrealistic too, when they make foolish statements, they get carried away. That you want to believe that your team is doing something, but the Texans petered out at the end of the season. The Texans team the last 4 weeks of the NFL season was not the same Texans team from the first 13 weeks of the season. I just the fact of the matter is that they peaked too soon, or somebody figured them out, or whatever the case may be. But they
also got a bad draw because the Colts a few weeks earlier had whipped their ass.
That's all the more about preparation, isn't it? I mean,
and so they always have Luck and T.Y. Hilton always have huge games in Houston for whatever reason.
That would be the case. T.Y. Hilton averaged, what they say, 135 yards of receptions, and every time he stepped foot on that field, and they still let him beat them. And again, preparation is a big part of this. Defense is a big part of it for the Texans, and it didn't show up. There wasn't the requisite pass rush. Clowney and Watt were not as dominant as what you would expect. But the real thing was that Deshaun Watson really looked overmatched, and he was inaccurate. He looked like he was pulling the string on a lot of his throws that were coming up short. And we know that he's a strong-armed guy. It really looked like a choke job to me, because
and this was his first playoff start too.
Well, that makes it
pretty much check downs.
That's right. It's all the eye test. And the eye test is true on one day, and anyone can have a bad day. But, you know, I watched Baker have as bad a half as you're going to have and then come back and throw for almost 300 yards in the second half of a football game. There is no reason to let it swamp you like that. And, you know, and this was like a cascade. It was like a fucking tsunami just enveloping this player. And he just couldn't get the ball to his wideouts. Everything was short. Everything was just inaccurate.
For those who've watched the replacements, this is what Shane Falco was talking about with Quicksand.
I didn't see that movie. I didn't see that one.
It was a good movie.
Really.
Plus, he was a former Ohio State
some really
quarterback.
funny parts in it.
Yeah, you know, and what I would say is this: everybody knows I'm not right about everything. God only knows, and I'm just explaining to you after watching these games why Greg Williams, that kind of defense, is just, you know, selling out. You know, to the house, you know, for pressure and strips and things of this nature, that the game is still won and lost at the line of scrimmage. The defense, the stoutest defense, is one that can stack up that line and just not give up plays off on the ground. And it forces teams into throwing into disguised coverages on second and third and long. This is what it, you know, and there are going to be big plays that offenses make. But if you keep putting teams in third and long situations, there are going to be mistakes that are made the other way, and you're going to get some takeaways. That's just, and some sacks. That's just the way it works. So, yeah, I think that to me, it's all interesting stuff. What I learned also from these games is that the balance of power in the AFC North is shifting. It's going to be interesting what the Ravens choose to do in their offseason from an offensive perspective. This quarterback, I don't understand yet. You know, everybody is saying great things about him, but he was not keeping his head up and looking down the field. He was looking out of the corner of his eye at the pass rush that was coming at him. And once you take your eyes off downfield, and we know this from Baker, Baker keeps his eyes downfield at all times. And Lamar Jackson just wasn't able to find anybody downfield because he was immersed in trying to look at who was going to hit him next. You know, that's not a that's not the kind of thing you want. Obviously, Freddie Kitchens just had his moment in the sun, stating his case as to why he should be the next head coach, and the answer is because he knows how to put in laminate flooring into manufactured homes. So, Freddie Kitchens, ladies and gentlemen, that's just
get you a real good deal on that RV.
But the Browns, but one thing I can say about the Browns is that they prevented anybody from talking to Freddie Kitchens. He's definitely going to be a big part of the team. I wouldn't be, you know, if you're a big Freddie fan, and I am, I think everybody in Cleveland is grateful for what clarity that he brought to the offense and the simplicity, with the exception of the goofy end arounds, and but the vitality that he brought and the creativity that he brought. I think everybody is really grateful for that. He will have his chance. He's 44 years old. He will have his chance, whether it's with the Browns or someone else. But right now, he's our guy. You know,
that's what I kind of got on Filthy about the other night, because he was like, well, he's not scheming enough. And it's like, what? Who else is running a wishbone?
Yeah.
How much more creative do you need?
He's done beyond what he's, you know, needed to do. He's stepped up and filled that role unbelievably.
Now, this is interesting.
Juggling eggs in the backfield?
Yeah, here's one. The Browns have put their interest in Mike McCarthy on hold for now, according to ESPN's Rob Demovsky. Demovsky, who covers the Packers, reported that the Browns talked to McCarthy or his representatives today and have put things on hold while they talk to other candidates. McCarthy, Demovsky said, is still very much in play for the Jets job. All right. So,
good. Let him go with fucking Sam Darnold, the second coming of Richard Todd.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, but I think it's interesting. Something tickled Cleveland's fancy. And we know that the defensive coordinator of the Colts came in, and we know also help me here. I just blanked. The other guy who we brought in,
Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell, right, from the Saints, right?
Right.
You know, associate coach there. You know, maybe.
And then they had Caldwell.
And Caldwell.
Was the third guy.
Correct. And I mean, and I think Caldwell serves a political purpose.
Probably the Rooney Rule.
Yeah, thank you. And that's something that Jimmy Haslam would not miss because he's hired plenty of them on his plantation.
Oh, ow.
I know. I know. Yeah,
where's the rim shot, Moo?
I know. My God. Did I just say that? Yeah. Old Jimmy. I mean, my God. He's just like a goddamn Tennessee Williams play. You know.
Orpheus descending.
Yeah. God only knows. At any rate, Freddie Kitchens is not going to become the next head coach, but I will say this, that, you know, Eberflus impressed the Browns. That is reports that I heard from some people, and so did Campbell. Maybe one of these two guys tickled their fancy and they just decided that McCarthy isn't the way they want to go. And I think I think a lot of it has to do with Kitchens. I think that McCarthy's a play caller. And I think that, you know, if you have an offense that is ascending and an offensive coordinator who gets it and has a vibe with the quarterback, you bring in a coach who's a little bit more defensively minded this time around, you know, and it's going to be the anti-Lincoln Riley thing. You know, you got to get that organized. And you finally have a franchise quarterback that if you can help him stay healthy, boy, nothing's better than 3-and-outs and put the ball back in Baker's hands. And we need more of that. So it's possible that that's what that's all about. But I'm surprised that McCarthy didn't get a formal interview at the very least, you know? So.
Hey, Mr. Moohead, if you don't mind me asking, where do you think or what do you think is going to happen with the whole Antonio Brown situation?
You know, things get forgotten, and I don't think the Steelers have. I know Juju Schuster has become a very fine wide receiver, but he wouldn't be such a fine wide receiver if Antonio Brown wasn't on the field. The Steelers have had problems since Haley was there, and people said that that the problem there was because Haley and Roethlisberger didn't get along. But now we're seeing Antonio Brown having problems and Todd Haley is no longer there. There is something, you know, I think LeBron James said it better than anyone could say it. And that is, I am the GOAT. No. what LeBron said, there does come a point when championship teams get tired of one another. And, you know, seeing the same faces in the locker room, that the motivation wanes. And I think that you're seeing some of this from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is it something that is going to destroy their relationship with Antonio Brown? I don't think so. But it is a complacency that has crept into that organization. And they're going to need to infuse that team. Roethlisberger's 37 years old next year. And anything can happen. Anything can happen when you get a guy up in that age.
Imagine seeing Antonio Brown and Jarvis Landry as our starting wide receivers.
Well, I mean, we don't know if this is Antonio Brown's problem. I mean, you know, look at Dez Bryant, the disastrous Dez Bryant. I mean, there are reasons why players have problems, and you know, it's you know, and when Derrick Rose went out and made comments telling people to go kill themselves, to me, it's no wonder that players like Derrick Rose, who have dark clouds over their heads, you know, Derrick Rose can say all he wants about Tom Thibodeau being fired. The fact of the matter is that he didn't love Tom Thibodeau that much in Chicago. He's looking at the glory days back when he was a real basketball player, when he was young, before all the injuries befell him. And who was his head coach? Tibbs. But the problem with Tibbs is that Tibbs preaches defense, not offense, and he was fired after a 22-point win because he doesn't get along with front offices. He has a history, like Hugh Jackson, of just not playing nice with the people who have employed him. But Derrick Rose is having the best year he could possibly have. God bless him. He's going to get a nice big fat contract because of it, but he's not a winner. He's never been a winner. He's not a guy who makes players around him better. The Timberwolves are not better because of him. They're 18-21. Let's be honest about it. There are some players who make people around them better and some people who do not. And you have to determine when you're bringing in players. Des Bryant didn't make anybody better around him. And I don't know about Antonio Brown, except that he's very talented. I would rather find a young superstar whose legs are fresh than waiting for a guy who's going to go down with his first major injury when he's a Cleveland Brown.
Butler.
Yeah, I mean, you have the thing with Hakeem Butler. He's dominating physicality in the college ranks for an Iowa State team, and he's a big play guy. But what about the bump and grind? What about the over-the-middle pattern? What about the stuff that you have to do in the route running? You just can't run down the fucking sidelines and play jump ball. Not in the NFL, you cannot. You got to learn how to run better patterns. And this is all the stuff that goes into finding a wide receiver. We should find a really good wide receiver, and it doesn't even have to be in the first round. But we need people to stretch the field who have athleticism. That's, all good stuff. But
one guy, if you will, that I really like, that I don't think he's coming out this year, but one guy that I watch every time I see him, he flashes on the TV whenever I watch him, and that's CeeDee Lamb, Oklahoma's wide receiver. I think he's eligible next year, if I'm not mistaken. But I think he's going to be a heck of a receiver in the league. So, I mean, obviously that wouldn't be till next year, and we need a number one guy now, but.
Yeah, and I agree. The Rudies aren't letting him go, Antonio Brown. They don't give people away. They pay. There's no way that they're just going to dump the guy. But it is
I could see the Cardinals making a trade for him, though.
What do you think he's worth? Because I see a first and a third.
You know something?
Probably a first and a fifth.
Wide receivers aren't even being drafted much in the first round. And every wide receiver that I've seen hasn't fetched a handsome price on the market. And
or maybe a 2 and a 3.
And Cyprian Johnson says Antonio Brown not coming to Cleveland. He's not that stupid. And, here's the bottom line. He's in Pittsburgh. How smart can he be?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, watching Golden Tate catch a pass, Golden Tate was a punchline until he caught that pass, came from the Lions, and he didn't deliver, and he makes one catch, and then they're saying, oh, the trade was worth it. The fact is we've gotten a lot of receivers who were supposedly the Dwayne Bowe kinds of guys who were successful at their previous places, but wide receivers peak, and you look at their numbers and they peak. And I remember when the Steelers had Mike Wallace, and then Wallace was, never had the same impact as he had with Roethlisberger. A lot of it has to do with the type of quarterback you have. And Baker Mayfield is a guy who likes to look down the field, and I like big, tall, fast guys who can go up after the ball because there's going to be some broken plays because of scrambling, and guys who can get down the field. I think that is essential for this team. And I think Jarvis Landry will be a much better possession receiver if he's not asked to do too much. And I think we need more than Callaway, and we need more than Perriman.
Have you seen the guy from Texas, Johnson? I don't know his first name, but he's a tall receiver who can go up and make plays. That dude is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's where's the noise emanating from
Phillip.
Right now?
It's
probably Jim.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's Phillip.
Phillip just came in and then he just came right out. Like sounded like he was at a grocery store or something.
Oh wow! Phillip came out in a grocery store.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yes, it's
was
asparagus.
he wearing a trench coat at the time?
I love asparagus. Okay, no. What a place to come out and go. We need a cleanup in aisle 6.
Take a look at these potatoes.
My God, he did like the asparagus way too much. Cleanup aisle 6. All right.
Hey, Mr. Moohead.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Before you go, Derek,
Mhm.
we're also getting back Derek Willies over the summer or for OTAs. He should be ready to go by then. So, and he's 6'4".
Yeah, but not of great speed, and obviously not a guy who was expected to be much of a contributor, only because we lost so many wide receivers because we got rid of them early in the season. Derek Willies probably, with the exception of that one catch that he made, I don't know. I don't. He looked like he could catch the ball, but he looked more like a possession guy. 6'4" is great. The former, help me here, the New York Jet guy who went to USC. Come on, number 19, I believe he was.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah, right, Keyshawn Johnson. I mean, there's a guy who is a big guy, but he wasn't really a huge, big play downfield guy. He was a guy who went over the middle and he got everything, right? I mean, and he used his size to get, and Derek Willies looked like that to me, not as good, of course, but he looked like that kind of a player. And I think that we're going to need somebody. I think we have Jarvis Landry who can catch everything that's thrown to him, except if it's coming from behind and it hits him in the back of the head. And, we need people who can get down the field and have chemistry with the quarterback and have an intelligence quotient to be able to run to open spots on the field. That's what we need. Now, you were going to say something, Derek, before we got out of here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just because it's tonight, I don't know if you know, but the national championships tonight, Nick Saban's probably going to get another one.
Yeah, do you really think that's going to be a game?
Well, I do think it's going to be yeah,
Clemson is the one team in the country that can consistently play toe-to-toe with Alabama.
Especially if they napalm the Alabama team before the game. Go ahead.
Well, and I said it on my
channel. Or they
bring
Bevo over to run over the sidelines.
Yeah. Go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just going to say, I said on my channel too, I agree with Brian 100%. I think if there's any team that's going to go down swinging to the very end, it's going to be Clemson with Alabama. And I mean, you've seen Georgia do that too, but we've seen what happened there. But yeah, so I think it'll be closer, but I do think Nick Saban gets another one. And it's just unfortunate, but it just shows to how great of a recruiter and college football coach he actually is.
They got a dynasty there. It's just like Bear Bryant all over again, except without the vulgar racism associated with him. Derek, before we go, tell everybody about your channel on YouTube because you're doing something.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, so I started a YouTube channel today. I'm going to be doing, I don't know if you could call it a podcast. It's more just going to be, well, I call it a podcast, but I'm basically just going to get on and talk about, some things that are going on, Browns season review, Buckeyes, all that. But no, it's really weird. If you want to go and check that out, I don't know if you can click on my, little icon or not, but no, if you want to, you got to look up,
Frisbee Sports. Is that what you're calling it?
Yeah. All caps, Frisbee Sports. But I don't know why, but you got to go to filter and go to today or this week in order to find it.
Yeah, it could be just that it's real new. It could be that it's just started.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to create your channel on the YouTube studio. And as a matter of
fact, Here's my goal. If Steven can get as many subscribers as he did, then I can get more.
Look, I could whip my dick out if I didn't get, and honestly, if I didn't get thrown off of YouTube, I mean, the dick's pretty impressive, I got to say. And, yeah, I mean, there would be a lot more Britneys in the chat room. That's for damn sure. A lot more Roxanne's dolls in the chat.
Hey, did you see my comment? I don't know if you seen my comment in our chat when you said about the Cowboys or whatever. I don't know if you said you hate the Cowboys or whatever. I said, oh, is it a cowboy and a cow thing getting herded?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Cowboys. I don't like Jerry Jones one bit. But, I mean, and I don't think that Dak Prescott is better than Baker Mayfield either. So,
oh, they're not even close.
No, I mean, so, but the number of people that follow, there are some people who are obviously way better at social media than I am, and I don't promote the program. And if I had somebody, and Brittany is saying, just check your settings, Derek, on the My Channel section. But you got to get into to do this correctly. You got to get the YouTube dashboard, and the dashboard is will allow you to access the Creator Studio, and that's where
I'll figure it out. But I appreciate any support any of y'all would give me. So.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And, give them a listen, because, hey, anybody who takes the time to put up with my crap on this program deserves all of the success they can achieve on their own.
Nothing like making fun of the Special Olympics, right?
Yeah. Amsterdam's asking a question where former co-host Michelle is these days. I exchanged messages with her, and she is in California, and she's making a lot of changes in her life. And from a health perspective, and doing well from what I understand.
She's still out there on Twitter if you want to get her.
But I mean, there's a lot of self-help things going on there, and but she seems to have recovered from her surgeries, which is great. And maybe one day we'll see her on here. But I think that there are other priorities that usurp the significance of being on this silly show.
Hey, how's the knee, by the way?
The knee is I'll finish the show this way. At the 6-week mark, they're hoping for 115-degree flex. I'm just starting week 4, and I'm at 115. So I'm about 2 weeks ahead of schedule as far as what I'm doing. Today, it's a little bit stiff. No, Roxanne, no. The knee. And I'm not going to show that on the air. God, I was just giving an example.
Wait, what are you saying? Where's this comment at? I need to see this.
Which knee?
It's my right knee, and
it's
the third leg. But I worked out this morning. Then I had to do PT in the afternoon. I thought I was doing PT in the morning. I ended up working out twice. The knee is stiff and sore, so I'm icing it down. But it's going well.
Moves ready to kick a field goal. You ready to replace Greg Joseph?
Wait, yeah. Wait a minute. Actually, something? I want to see a kicker, and I'm going to finish the show this way because I started it this way. I'll finish it this way. It's like, I don't want to see this. I want to see the Village People.
YMCA?
That's correct. If we're going to do something after a kick, let's give praise to the leather guy from.
Hey, do you know they were gay? My friend just told me that the other day. I didn't know
that. Glenn Hughes, who was the leather guy, that he performed. The Village People performed at one of our Halloween parties in Flint, Michigan. This guy wasn't like gay. This guy was like burn down the rainforest gay. And I mean, this guy was grabbing the crotch of our people who were there to show him to the venue. And there was a guy who he groped. I mean,
oh my gosh,
he's passed away since, but and I don't want to see bad things about the Leatherman. And they were fun to watch on stage because they were outrageous. But yes, they were absolutely,
I'm glad you confirmed it.
Yeah, well, what do you mean confirmed it? Everybody knew. You're a millennial. About it. You're the only one on the face of the earth who didn't know that. I mean, the song Go West is about going to San Francisco. It's not like going to see the Grand Canyon there, Derek. My goodness. Oh. Listen to the lyrics.
That's the last comment I'll make.
It's fun to go to the YMCA. I mean, that's the young men's Christian.
Young men.
Then come on.
Am I not allowed back anymore after that?
No. But
just be careful if you go in the locker room at the YMCA. Okay, that's Derek. We don't want to corrupt you at this young age. Okay,
we're burgeoning sexuality.
I'm already there.
If you're experimenting with the Village People when you're 16, it's completely understandable.
And if you get invited to a camp at Penn State, please don't go.
Yeah. or if they try to trick you into saying it's in Sandusky. All right. Everybody. This is one of the worst programs I've ever done. In
that case, I'm triple happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. It was rude.
Making history here.
Yeah, thanks to everybody, Rick and Hammer and Derek and Brian and Brittany, and also thanks to Philip and everybody else who's part of the program. We'll be back again.
And Stephen for not coming on.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to be cruel, but I really gonna have to talk to that boy. You can't do that. No. It's like that's something you do in your living room, but not on YouTube. You know. And anyway, everybody have a good night, and I'll see you again on Friday, and we'll talk about what happens to the college national championship and the Browns head coaching search and see what's going on, and then we'll prepare you for next weekend's football games. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.